My name is Julian, and the last falsehood she told was not even that important. That is what affected me the most. It was not some huge betrayal or scandal, but a calm, intentional concealment. Delilah left on a Thursday afternoon. When I got back from work, I tossed my keys into the bowl by the entrance and noticed her gym bag was missing, along with several outfits from the dresser. No note, no message, absolutely nothing. Several hours went by. I tried calling her once, but there was no response. Then a text popped up saying, "Hey, do not worry. I am at a wellness retreat with Avery for a few days. I needed a break. Totally forgot to tell you earlier. You have been so caught up." That was it. I stood in the kitchen, staring at the screen with the message glowing on my phone, and I swear I felt something shift inside my head, like a door closing softly, not banging, just closing quietly. This was not the first time she behaved like this. It was simply the last time I let it happen. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't make a call. I simply set the phone down and sat quietly on the edge of the bed. Not angry, not shocked. Just done. People often picture the end of a relationship as one massive, dramatic moment, but that's not how it works. It's made up of countless small hurts, missed conversations, and slowly fading respect until all that's left are two people who once cared deeply. She likely expected me to hang around, maybe send a message the next day, ask about her retreat, or cook her favorite dish like before. But none of that was going to happen. When someone leaves without telling the person they share their life with, it's not a brief getaway. They're already gone for good. This might sound like the final point, but it's really just the moment when the mask slips away and you realize maybe they were never truly present with you in the first place. Delilah and I met at a professional networking event in Charlotte. She was in brand marketing, sharp as a tack, always dressed as if heading somewhere more significant. I run a consulting business that still keeps me busy. My world is all about numbers, structures, and order. She stood out, not just for her appearance, though she had that too, but because of her energy, quick on her feet, endlessly inquisitive, and a little wild in a way that made people want to draw closer. After the event, we went out for drinks. She playfully mocked me for being overly strategic, and I replied, "Someone needs to keep the engine running while you're dancing on the roof." She chuckled. I distinctly recall thinking, this might actually lead somewhere. And it truly did. For a while, things were great. We complemented each other perfectly. Her spontaneity pulled me away from my usual patterns. My steadiness provided her with a sense of security. Early on, we talked about what was ahead. I was honest. I don't believe in shared bank accounts. It is not about trust. It is a personal policy. My father endured a nightmare after my mother drained their joint savings and vanished. It took him years to recover. I promised myself I would never endure that pain. Delilah understood. "You really stick to your boundaries?" she asked. I nodded. I certainly did. At first, she didn't push back, but after about 1 year, she began planting subtle suggestions. It would have been much easier if we just kept one account. Why are you so rigid about money? It feels like there's no passion. We are building a life together, aren't we? I stood firm, but I noticed a shift. She wanted shared control, even if it meant pushing boundaries. Eventually, we found a compromise. We created a joint account for everyday expenses. Bills, groceries, rent, nothing lavish. I kept a close eye on it, not because I doubted her, but out of habit. She said, "Now it truly feels like we are partners." I wanted to believe her, but something seemed off, as if she hadn't fully accepted the limitation, but had figured out how to work around it. Her actions became predictable. Delilah never shouted. She didn't storm out in anger. Instead, she wore things down quietly and gradually, like water slowly carving rock, appearing gentle while cutting straight through the base. We moved in together during the 3rd year. I owned a condo downtown, but Delilah hated the design, calling it more like a dentist's office. So we looked for a loft in the North End. Huge windows, exposed brick, and outrageously expensive. She loved it. Around that time, she quit her job. "I need space to breathe," she said. "The 9-to-5 job is killing my creativity." I did not argue. She began freelancing now and then, enough to justify the choice but far from stable. I covered the rest without complaint. That was the point when Avery started appearing more frequently, Delilah's college buddy. One of those people who always seemed just one glass of wine away from suggesting something impulsive. She was constantly present. Sleepovers, brunches, and never-ending conversations about business ideas that led nowhere. Then came the wellness weekends. At first, they were relaxed. A trip to Asheville with Avery, returning by Sunday. No big deal, but over time they happened more often. Sometimes she mentioned them only the day before. Other times, not at all. One Friday, I came home to find my closet empty and a quickly scribbled note on the fridge. "Gone with Avery." Don't wait up. I didn't lose my temper. I simply asked, "Do you think it's normal to vanish for 3 days without a word?" She looked up from her laptop as if I had interrupted something trivial. It was spontaneous. "We were just talking and decided to go." "Why do you always act like my plans need your approval?" I stayed composed. "Because we live together. Usually that calls for a bit of respect." She sighed. "You're turning into one of those guys who needs permission slips." That stung deeply, not because I cared about permission, but because I realized we were living in completely different realities. She saw me as controlling. I saw her as unpredictable. We weren't really discussing trips or timing anymore. It was about the fact that she was drifting away from the life we had been trying to build and behaving like I was inventing it. That is when I began keeping a record. Not to accuse her, but so I could stop doubting myself, tracking patterns, dates, and changes in behavior. When someone starts wiping away the lines you both drew, you need to remember where those boundaries once stood. Our joint account was supposed to be used strictly for necessities. That was the agreement. Even so, I reviewed the statements each month more out of routine than actual need. Then, one day, a charge caught my eye from a boutique hotel in Savannah. 2 nights, spa services, room delivery. The dates matched perfectly with the weekend Delilah claimed she spent visiting her aunt in Raleigh. I didn't bring it up immediately. Instead, I let the thought sit with me. Maybe it was a present. Maybe Delilah covered it and Avery was supposed to pay the hotel back later. My mind raced through endless explanations, but instincts rarely deceive. The next clue came directly from Avery herself. They were in the kitchen laughing over smoothies when I walked in. Avery said casually, "Savannah was crazy. Your wife is still recovering." Then she paused and looked straight at me. Delilah's smile slipped for a split second. "That was a while ago," she quickly replied. "Remember I told you we went there?" I said nothing, just gave a small nod. "Yeah, you mentioned something like that." I let the moment slide, but the foundation of trust had already started to crack. From that moment onward, it was all about paying close attention, listening intently, observing carefully. One evening, she was on the phone in the bedroom, the door left slightly ajar. I overheard her say, "It's not like I'm truly married. It's complicated." That was the moment everything changed. Not the trip, not the lies, nor even Avery. It was hearing those words drop casually, as if our life was something she could dip in and out of whenever she pleased, as if our bond meant nothing unless it was convenient for her. She appeared 20 minutes later, smiling brightly. I was sitting on the couch reading. "Want to order pizza?" she asked, as if nothing had occurred. I looked up. "Who were you speaking with?" She shrugged. "Avery, right?" I nodded, more out of curiosity than anything else. She tilted her head. "You've been acting odd lately." "Have I?" "Yeah. You're always watching." Silent. I said nothing. I simply went back to my book. Because there comes a moment when words lose their impact. When saying, "I heard you say you're basically single," no longer carries weight. At that point, you are not trying to fix anything. You are merely watching someone strike a match, waiting to see if they realize they are standing on gasoline. The confrontation came out of nowhere. It simply happened. It was a Wednesday night. We had just finished ordering our usual takeout dinner. Delilah was browsing on her phone, her legs stretched out on the coffee table, pretending that everything was okay. I asked, "Can you explain what is really going on?" She didn't even glance up. "What do you mean?" "You've been disappearing all weekend, lying about where you've been, saying things like, 'You're not really married.'" She sneered. "Are you seriously going through receipts now? Are you really that insecure?" I kept my tone steady. "No, I'm paying attention, and I'm tired of pretending that what's clear isn't true." At last, she looked at me. "Julian, for goodness sake, I take a couple of trips with my friend, and suddenly I am accused of cheating." "I never said cheating." I said lying, hiding, acting as if the life we created means nothing unless it fits your version. She slammed her phone on the table. "You want answers? Fine. I'm drained. You plan everything out. You inspect every little thing. You act like life is some kind of spreadsheet that I'm always messing up." I stayed silent. "So now you say I'm dishonest just because I'm organized. I lie because you are suffocating me." That cut deep. Not because it was true, but because I saw what she was doing. She was trying to put the blame on me. She didn't deny it. She just shrugged. "I need my life back, Julian. You have become a lifeless machine. You used to laugh. You used to take initiative." I stood up. "You're saying I made it easy for you to escape reality." She rolled her eyes. "You're being so over the top." And right then, that was the final straw. Not the lies, not the manipulation, not even the disrespect. It was the complete lack of remorse. The arrogance that she could ruin 5 years of trust and just walk away with a smirk. I didn't argue, didn't show any emotion. I simply looked at her and said, "All right." She narrowed her eyes. "All right what?" "Nothing, just all right." Then I left the room because some silences speak louder than any fight, and I wanted her to feel every second of it. She expected me to blow up, to wait for her apology, to repeat the never-ending cycle we had been trapped in for the past year. But I didn't. I waited. I watched. And then I made my move. 3 days later, she left again. Another spontaneous weekend with Avery. Of course, no heads up, just a message 2 hours before she took off. "Don't forget to water the plants. I'll be back Sunday night. Need some space." She always needed space. I just stopped being the air she breathed. When I came back home, I didn't hesitate. I opened the closet and took down the suitcase that had been untouched for months. With calm hands, I carefully folded each piece of clothing I owned. I collected the tools, the books, the chargers, and the memories that still carried meaning. I left behind the dishes she had picked out, the framed photo from our second beach vacation, and the matching coffee mugs she found charming on Etsy. Those belonged to her now. I gathered the lease papers, drove straight to the leasing office, and signed my way out. The man at the counter looked surprised. "Moving out already?" he asked. "Yeah," I answered. "Time for something new." He nodded. That happens. Back in the apartment, I did one last walkthrough to make sure nothing was left behind. The place looked cleaner than it had in weeks, but it still felt empty. Standing in the kitchen, I grabbed a sticky note and wrote, "You were right. This was never marriage." I placed the note on the fridge. That was it. No long letters, no playlists of heartbreak, just a few simple words. Enough. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked away. She had yet to realize that the retreat was not hers alone. I left too. The only difference was, I was not returning. That evening, I blocked her number, deleted her from every account we shared, and cut off her access to anything bearing my name. The apartment ceased to be my sanctuary. That woman was no longer my spouse. And peace, genuine, undisturbed, and hard-won peace, finally became mine. The first call came Sunday night, right on the dot. The number was unfamiliar, so I let it go straight to voicemail. Her voice was breathless. "Julian, where are you? Everything here has vanished. Are you okay? Please call me back." I didn't even wait for the message to finish. Then another call followed, this time from a different area code. She was now calling from Avery's phone. "This isn't fair," she said. "You can't just vanish like this. We need to talk." A third message arrived, then a fourth, back to back. Each one sounded more confused than the last. Then frustration appeared. "Oh, I see now. You want me to chase you? You're punishing me. How mature, Julian." Then came the guilt trip. "Maybe I haven't been flawless, but this is just cruel. We are married. You owe me a conversation." She repeated those words over and over. "You owe me." Not once did she say, "I'm sorry." I listened to each voicemail once, then deleted them all, one by one. She wasn't trying to mend anything. She was trying to reclaim control, to reset the situation. But I had already stepped away completely. I didn't block Avery's number. I didn't need to. I knew she would stop once the silence became unbearable. And sure enough, she did. 3 days slipped by. Then a full week followed, with no phone calls, just an overwhelming void. Within that quiet, I started to breathe once more. I found a modest spot across town, nothing fancy, but neat and calm, with my name on the door and on it alone. Every morning, I would wake up, brew my coffee, sit out on the balcony, and listen only to the wind and distant traffic. No guilt, no tension, no careful steps around unspoken issues, just freedom, the kind she always craved, and the kind I finally granted myself. A few days onward, I consulted a lawyer and began the divorce process. Swift, simple, without any hurdles. She had not replied to the papers, but that no longer affected me. I had fulfilled my role. I was liberated. Many believe that silence is harsh, that withholding explanations is cruel. Yet truthfully, silence arrives after you have said all the words you could. When your strength is misunderstood as fragility, your patience mistaken for fear, until the moment you vanish completely. This is not vengeance. This is understanding. It has been 4 months since I walked away. I have not seen her, nor have I heard her voice, since those last voicemails. She reached out one time through email. It was a short message without a subject line. "Can we talk like adults?" I chose not to respond. Not out of bitterness, but because there was nothing left to say. Reflecting now, I feel no regret, only clarity. Like reviewing an old project, you spot the errors, ignored warnings, and missed signs. But most of all, you realize how long you stayed with someone who stopped showing up. Delilah did not betray me in the usual sense, at least not in any way I can prove. Yet that was not what ruined us. It was the slow dismissal of everything we once claimed to cherish, the refusal to put in equal effort, the twisting of responsibility into control. The way she saw every boundary as a challenge to overcome. She believed I would never leave. That was the crucial point. She assumed I would stay until I was no longer useful, interesting, or available to her. Even then, she was convinced she would have the last word. Yet here lies the bitter truth about respect. Once it vanishes, the silence that follows speaks louder than any feelings of regret. Those who most need to recognize this truth often never do. I had already started to disappear in that place long before I packed my suitcase. Now, every morning, I prepare my own coffee. Every night, I fall asleep without wondering if I will awaken to an empty bed or another excuse. I do not long for her. I miss the idea I held of her. Still, even that image fades with time. The divorce was completed last month. No arguments, no guilt, just a signed paper and quiet. because in the end, it was not the final lie that broke us apart. It was her conviction that I would stay despite hearing it, but I did not, and I never will again.